Cape Cod Broadcasting weaves the listening environments of 99.9 WQRC, Ocean 104.7, WFCC Classical 107.5, Cape Country 104, and CapeCon.com's website experience to reflect the lifestyles of the people who live, work, and play on Cape Cod. We hope that you enjoy this podcast.
I'm Justin Saunders, and this is Sunday Journal. I'm here in the studio with Judy Heller, Program Manager from Three Bays Preservation, and Amy Croteau, a Department of Natural Resources Officer with the town of Barnstable and also one of the town's herring wardens. Thank you guys both for being here today.
You're welcome. Glad to be here.
One of the signs of spring on Cape Cod is the annual journey of the herring up streams and rivers all over the Cape to spawn in freshwater ponds. Amy, for people who may not be familiar with herring, can you give us an overview of the herring life cycle and what happens every spring?
Sure. Well, river herring are part of the herring family. They are in that family with sardines, menhaden, shad, and Atlantic herring, which are our sea herring. There are two different kinds of river herring. You have your alewives and your bluebacks. When they reach their adult stage at about 3 years of life, will make the journey upstream into our freshwater ponds, lakes, rivers, and will spawn. After they spawn or have their babies, those young fish, which are called fry, will spend the duration of the summer growing on the food that's available in the freshwater ponds till they're about the size of, the length of your index finger. And then once fall, late summer arrives, they get the cue to head back out to sea to grow up and continue that cycle.
And the herring are really considered a vital part of the ecology in the region. Isn't that part right, Amy?
Yeah, absolutely. They're an important food niche to all wildlife. They definitely serve somewhat similar to the cicadas that come every 17 years, only they're an annual food feast for our animals after a long winter. But they're also a keystone species in that they reflect the overall coastal ecology, their ecosystem. So if you're having a problem in your wetlands and in your ponds, then you're probably having a decline in your herring population.
And Judy, you work for Three Bays Preservation, which is concerned with the health of the environment in the Three Bays area on the town of Barnstable's south side. Why is Three Bays interested in herring?
We consider herring to be an indicator of the water quality in the Three Bays area. We're in the Marston's Mills River watershed, and they've been going up there historically. It's one of the first runs that was ever built on the Cape. So as the water quality has declined over the years, the amount of herring has declined as well. So our goal is to improve the water enough that we can get the population back to a sustainable amount.
And what does Three Bays do when it comes to keeping an eye on herring runs in the Three Bays area?
What we do is we work very closely with Amy and the town. The town has been great. They walk the entire run to make sure there's no obstacles for the herring to get through there. We have a counting program that we work with the state of Massachusetts. So every spring when they show up, we have between anywhere from 40 to 50 volunteers that go down every day and count how many herring run from the run into the pond. And it gives the state a good indication of the amount of herring that we have.
Now, Amy, is there a lot of work to do to get the streams ready for the herring?
Yes, and especially after a winter like this where you have a number of storms that bring snow and heavy winds. My coworker Martin Wonderly and I have been working very hard and very diligently over the past 4 or 5 years to get all of the active runs within town to a point where the maintenance is not as difficult as it was 5 years ago, but nature always throws you a curveball. We had walked and maintained all of our runs by the middle of January this year, and then the end of January and most of February happened, and lo and behold, we are scrambling to walk all of these runs again before the fish show up.
Amy, how many herring runs are there in the town of Barnstable?
There are 4 active runs. There's the Santuit River Run, which is shared between the town of Mashpee and the town of Barnstable, the Marston's Mills River Run. There's the Centerville River Run, which houses 2 small runs, one that goes up into Lake Wequawket and one that goes into Retherley Pond and Lake Elizabeth. And then there are a couple of inactive runs that have not had herring in them for, decades, but that could potentially be rehabilitated in the future should we have the time to do so and, of course, the money. There's Mill Pond in West Barnstable. There is the Skunknet River, as well as Little River in Cotuit.
Is that more than most towns on the Cape?
I'm not really really sure about most towns on the Cape. As a natural resource officer in the town of Barnstable, I'm required to know what goes on in this town, and I also grew up in this town, so my knowledge of other towns' herring runs is pretty limited. I know that there are a couple of towns that have larger runs than we do. A lot of our runs are very small, sort of stream-based. Rainfall, takes a large part in whether or not our runs can even be active each year. But I do know that we maintain about 7 miles of run each year.
Now, both of you guys actually use volunteers to count the herring. How does that process work, Judy or Amy?
Well, I don't yet.
She's in the process.
I'm in the process, yeah. I've been learning from Judy for a number of years. We've worked together, and I'm starting a pilot count program this year, so I think Judy would be best suited to answer that question.
Yeah, absolutely.
We got into managing this run through the untimely death of Kevin Galvin, and he was the man who lived right at Mill Pond in Marston's Mills. And his wife was very concerned that we keep the run going because that was something that was very near and dear to his heart. So we took over a program that Kevin had already started. So we were actually volunteers for him in doing the counting with him. We kind of had to start at square one. We just did a lot of advertising. The Marston's Mills Village Association is very active in getting that the word out for us. So we wound up getting people that had counted for Kevin continue on with us, and they're still doing it today. We are actually having a training meeting. It's going to be gone by the time this airs, but and we have about 40 people signed up for the training. So it's a great thing for families. Kids love to do it. It's great for people who are retired and are just looking for something to fill their days. Very minimal effort, very minimal time, very simple to do. So,
is there a specific demographic of those volunteers that volunteer for the herring count? Is there a most popular number?
As to age, you
yes.
mean? It's mostly retired people because they can come. It's something we do from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. And so most retired people have that freedom to do it. But we also get kids after school. We get kids who are doing community service projects. It's a great community service project if somebody's looking for it. This year, for the first time, we're actually getting it's a group of challenged adults. And so they're going to come down and they're going to help us do it. So it's all ages, actually.
How do you train people to count herring?
It's very simple.
It's got to be interesting.
Yes. In the past, we've actually taken them down to the run and shown them where the fish come over. This year, unfortunately, it's still snowed in. You just stand there. As the fish go from the run into the pond, the town has put this whiteboard. You just stand there and count for 10 minutes. How many fish go from the run into the pond, and only 10 minutes in any given hour. So we do it 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., any 10 minutes within any one of those hours. And it's really easy. And then that's all. And then you call us or you send us an email and tell us how many fish you counted, what the water temperature was, anything that you happen to know.
If it was sunny out that day,
yeah, if it was sunny out,
yeah.
I mean, the state wants to know all of those things. So, and then we just, at the end of the run, when we determine that the fish have pretty much gone through, we send everything up to the state, and they tabulate how many fish they consider have gone through.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I'm Justin Saunders, and this is Sunday Journal. We're talking about the annual rite of spring when herring make their journey from the ocean waters surrounding the Cape up to the Cape's rivers to freshwater ponds to spawn. So, Judy, Three Bays has been counting herring for a number of years. What have been the statistics over the years? Up, down, or staying steady?
We've actually had a great increase. When we first started doing it, I think the program started in 2006, and they were only counting in the hundreds. There was probably 400 fish they counted the first year. 2 years ago, we had our banner year. We counted 56,000 fish. So it's gone from being very small, and it's making a comeback. Last year, we had a little bit of a dip, but it was still like 48,000 fish. So, which is small considered. We're considered a very small run. If you go out to Brewster, they're getting hundreds of thousands of fish.
Or if you go out to like the Nemasket River or the Taunton River, you're talking millions of fish.
Yeah.
Wow.
But there's specific carrying capacities for each fresh body of water where these fish spawn. So, the Marston's Mills River, which goes into Middle Pond and some say even connects to Mystic Lake, is, the carrying capacity for the amount of herring that you can physically put in there without it being damaging to the population is not going to be what you can put into the Taunton River,
Amy, there are rules in place in this region to protect herring. Can you explain the moratorium that was put in place a number of years ago?
Yes. So the original moratorium was in 2005, and it was put in place by Division of Marine Fisheries and went until 2008, and then they renewed it to 2011, and then renewed it again until the end of 2014. The end of 2014, the Atlantic States Marine Fisheries Commission became involved with river herring management because the population is still in continual decline, has been since the 1990s. And now, in order for any town to open herring run to harvest, they need to have an approved sustainable fishery management plan in place that is approved not only by Division of Marine Fisheries, but also by the Atlantic States Marine Fisheries Commission. So the rules have changed, and the rules have changed because the restoration efforts and the bycatch efforts that the state has been making has not been causing the population increase that they had expected. So intervention was necessary by other agencies, and now new rules are in place. So there will not be any herring harvest, reasonably speaking, in the town of Barnstable for probably about 15 years or so.
And for our listeners who are not familiar with herring, it's a prized bait fish, isn't that right?
It is. And especially if you're catching striped bass, and right when, the striped bass are beginning to show up is when people like me, the natural resource officers in towns that do have herring runs, start to keep their eyes out for people poaching. They are very valuable as a bait fish.
And, Judy, it's a really good sign of health in the ecosystem because it attracts birds and otters and other wildlife. Is that right?
True. And that's how we can pretty much tell that the herring are running. You just look at the and you see ospreys circling, you see the gulls sitting there just waiting. Yeah.
See raccoon footprints all over the place.
Yeah. So you know the fish are there.
Yeah.
And for people interested in herring as well, where are the best places to watch the herring?
In my opinion, if you're in the town of Barnstable, the best place to view herring would be at Mill Pond in Marston's Mills. Right at the corner of Route 149 and Route 28, there is parking. It's very open, and you can easily view the fish ladder. Most of our other runs in town are not as easily accessible or are in residential areas that don't have as much parking or easy access. So if you're going out of town, probably the Brewster herring run would be your best bet. Yeah, it's beautiful. Or, even the Jenny Grist Mill in Plymouth even is a great place to watch them.
Now, going back to a previous question I had earlier, is there any reason for the increase or decrease in herring populations around the Cape?
From year to year, it can be as easy as a year of bad recruitment. Say, for instance, in this town where rainfall plays a large part in whether or not we can get the adults into the pond to spawn and whether or not we can get the fry out in the fall. Last year, we had a lot of fry that were stuck in our ponds. So you can expect that about 3 years from now, we probably will have a dip in the numbers of adults that come up because there simply were less getting out to sea. So things like that will definitely cause fluctuations from year to year.
And Amy, what about Wampanoag rights to take herring as well?
They have their Aboriginal right to harvest herring. They're not allowed to take them and then give them to people who are outside of the tribe, but they are allowed to take them for use as bait for other fish that they're planning on catching. A lot of people smoke them and eat them, and that is something that they have always been allowed to do and are continued to allow to do.
And we should remind people as well that they're not allowed to catch them.
Or touch them, or anything, yes.
climbing
into a run, even if you're a child and playing with the fish when there are a lot of fish in a pool, is considered harassment of that animal. So, none of that is allowed.
Now, with the recent winter storms that we had this year, considering how cold it's been, has that had any effect on the herring population, or will it have any effect on the herring population this year?
I think it's going to be late.
Yeah, they're definitely going to be late. I don't think, there was one year, a couple years ago, where we started seeing scouts in mid-February. And I haven't seen any scouts yet, and I've been physically in the herring runs. And we took a water temperature in the Centerville River a couple days ago, and it's 36 degrees. And typically for your alewives to show up, you want the temperature ideally to be about 52. You may start seeing them when it's in the mid-40s, but we're still quite a ways from that. So I imagine it'll be mid-April probably before we start seeing our first herring.
So mid-April is about the late time when people should be seeing herring.
Sure.
Herring, yeah. As a last part before I let you guys go, do you guys have anything else further to say as kind of a last comment or anything before we go?
If you want to volunteer, please feel free to get in touch with us. We always welcome volunteers.
Yeah.
Very easy. Amy's starting up a run. She's going to need volunteers.
Yeah. I'm definitely, hearing 40 to 50 volunteers is, I'm like, oh, okay. So now I have a number to shoot for because you guys have a great count program.
And anybody can do this. This is open to everyone.
Anybody can do this.
And unfortunately, we're out of time. Amy Croteau, the Town of Barnstable's Herring Warden, and Judy Heller from 3 Bays Preservation. Thank you guys both again so much for being here with me today to talk about herring runs.
Thank you.
I'm Justin Saunders, and this is Sunday Journal.
This podcast is a presentation of Cape Cod Broadcasting, which is solely responsible for its content. Thank you for listening. For more information, please visit us at capecodbroadcasting.com.